Jiho stood in the engine room of the New Dawn Times, and watched the screens. His hands rested on the cold metal rail, steady and calm. Outside the ship, 50 alien vessels surrounded them like wolves around sheep. Each ship was 3 times larger than any human vessel. Their dark hulls reflected no light, as if they swallowed the stars themselves. The colony ship had been traveling for 6 months. Inside were 3,000 humans, all hoping to start a new life on Taeyang 4. The planet was beautiful, with blue oceans and green forests. It was supposed to be humanity's greatest achievement, their first successful colony outside their home sector. Now, it might become their grave. All ships, this is Commander Daehyun. The voice came through every speaker on every human vessel. Jiho closed his eyes and listened. We are receiving a transmission from the alien fleet. They call themselves the Nexium Empire. Jiho had heard of them. Everyone in human space had heard the rumors. A massive empire that conquered world after world, species after species. 47 star systems had fallen to them. Now humanity would be the 48th. They are demanding our surrender, Daehyun continued. His voice was steady, but Jiho could hear the weight behind each word. By order of Earth Command, protocol silence is now in effect. All ships will stand down. All weapons will remain offline. We will not resist. The engine room erupted in chaos. Engineers and technicians shouted in disbelief. Some cursed. Others demanded explanations. Jiho said nothing. He simply gripped the rail tighter, his knuckles turning white. A woman pushed through the crowd toward him. Hana, his younger sister. Her face red with anger. Did you hear that? We're just giving up. 3 warships out there with enough firepower to give them a fight. And we're surrendering. I heard, Jiho said quietly. That's all you have to say? Hana grabbed his arm. You served in the military. You know tactics. This is insane. Why? Jiho looked at his sister. Her eyes were bright with tears she refused to let fall. She had always been the brave one, the one who spoke her mind. He wished he could tell her everything, but the secrets he carried were not his to share. There are things about humanity you don't understand yet, he said softly. Then explain them to me. Before he could answer, the ship shuddered. The lights flickered. On the screens, small craft were detaching from the alien vessels, heading toward the human ships like arrows toward targets. They're boarding us, someone whispered. The boarding happened quickly. The aliens moved through the ship with practiced efficiency. They were tall, nearly 7 feet, with smooth gray skin and large black eyes. They wore armor that seemed to flow like liquid metal. In their hands, they carried weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. Jiho watched them herd the humans into the cargo bay. He noted how they moved, how they communicated with subtle gestures and head movements. They were telepathic, he realized. They spoke to each other with their minds. One of the aliens, larger than the others with red markings on his armor, stood before the gathered humans. His voice, when he spoke, echoed strangely, as if it came from everywhere at once. I am General Kirix, second to Queen Valara, ruler of the Nexium Empire. You are now subjects of the Empire. You will obey. You will serve. You will live, if you are useful. An older man stepped forward from the crowd. We surrendered peacefully. There's no need for threats. Kirix looked at the man with what might have been curiosity. Threats? No. I speak only truth. Your species is weak. Your technology is primitive. Your surrender was expected. He paused, his dark eyes scanning the crowd. Yet something troubles me. I have conquered 23 species. None surrendered this easily. None were this calm. Jiho felt the alien's gaze sweep over him. For a moment, their eyes met. The general's head tilted slightly, as if sensing something he could not quite identify. Take them, Kirix ordered. Process them according to standard protocols. The aliens began separating the humans into groups: workers, scientists, engineers, children, the elderly. Each group was marked with a symbol projected onto their skin, a glowing mark that identified their new purpose in the Empire. Jiho was marked as an engineer. They put restraints on his wrists, thin bands of that same liquid metal that hardened into unbreakable bonds. As they led him away, he passed by a young girl standing with her parents. Her name was Yuna, maybe 8 years old. She looked up at him with wide eyes. For just a moment, Jiho's control slipped. His eyes flashed, a brief pulse of light that seemed to come from within. It lasted less than a second, but Yuna saw it. She gasped softly, but said nothing. Her parents were too frightened to notice. Jiho looked away and let himself be led to the transport ship. Hours later, the humans were aboard the Nexium flagship. The ship was enormous, a city in space. Its corridors were wide and high, built for beings larger than humans. The walls pulsed with a soft blue light, and the air smelled of something sharp and metallic. They brought Jiho to a massive throne room. At the far end, seated on a throne that seemed carved from a single piece of black crystal, sat Queen Valara. She was beautiful and terrible. Her skin was pale silver, her eyes deeper black than space itself. She wore robes that moved like living shadows, and on her head rested a crown that seemed to be made of frozen starlight. Power radiated from her like heat from a fire. "Humans," she said, her voice resonating in their minds as much as their ears. "I have studied your species. You are young. Barely 10,000 years of recorded history. Your technology is crude. Your ships are slow. Your weapons are weak." She leaned forward slightly. "Yet you explored beyond your home system. You built colonies. You dreamed of the stars. For this, I grant you a choice." She raised one elegant hand. "Serve the Empire faithfully, and you will be protected. Rebel, and you will be removed." The choice is simple. Commander Daehyun, standing among the crowd of prisoners, stepped forward. "We will serve, Your Majesty. We want no conflict." Valara studied him with those bottomless eyes. "You are wise. Most species choose foolish resistance before accepting the inevitable. Your surrender saves millions of lives." She waved her hand dismissively. "Take them to their quarters. Begin their training tomorrow." As the humans were led away, Valara turned to General Kyrix. "You seem troubled." "I am, my queen. This was too easy. The humans have weapons. They have warships. They chose not to use them, because they are wise enough to know they cannot win. Perhaps," Kyrix crossed his arms, "or perhaps they are hiding something." Valara laughed. A sound like crystal bells. "Hiding what?" "They are primitives. Cattle. Useful, but nothing more." In his assigned quarters, a small room with basic furniture, Jiho sat on the edge of a narrow bed. His hands were still bound, but the restraints did not concern him. He could break them without effort. He could break the door. He could break the ship, but he would not. Not yet. He thought of the orders from Earth Command. Protocol Silence. It had been created centuries ago. Kept secret. Passed down through select military families. Jiho was one of the Sentinels, humans who knew the truth about their species, who remembered what they really were. The Nexium thought they had conquered humanity. They were wrong. They had awakened something that had been sleeping for a very, very long time. Jiho closed his eyes and waited. Patience was humanity's greatest weapon. They had waited millions of years already. They could wait a little longer. 6 months passed under Nexium rule. The humans adapted to their new lives as servants of the Empire. They worked in the engine rooms, the science labs, the agricultural sections. They cleaned corridors and prepared food. They did whatever their masters commanded. Jiho worked deep in the engine sections of the flagship. The Nexium technology was advanced, far beyond what humans publicly used. He studied it carefully, learning how each system connected to the next. The other human workers noticed that he never seemed tired. He never complained. He worked 16-hour shifts without breaking a sweat. "You're not normal," another engineer named Taeyang said one day. "The rest of us are exhausted. But you? You're like a machine." Jiho smiled slightly. "Just good genetics." Meanwhile, Hana had been assigned to the science division. The Nexium valued her knowledge of biology and chemistry. They let her access their data archives to help catalog human physiology for their records. What they did not know was that Hana was brilliant at finding patterns others missed. Late one night, working alone in the lab, she discovered something strange. The Nexium had conquered 47 species. Every single one of those species shared certain DNA markers, specific genetic sequences that appeared across all of them. It was as if the galaxy had been seeded by one ancient race, leaving their mark on all their children, all except humans. Human DNA was completely different. It had none of those markers. It was like humans came from somewhere else entirely, or evolved in a completely different way. Hana ran the analysis 3 times. The result was always the same. Humans were unique, alone, different from every other species in the known galaxy. She thought about telling someone, but stopped. If the Nexium learned this, what would they do? Would they see humans as more valuable? Or more dangerous? General Kyrix had his own concerns. He stood in the observation deck, watching human workers repair a damaged section of the hull. They worked efficiently, following orders without question. Too efficiently, too obediently. "They are planning something," he said to his lieutenant. "They show no signs of resistance, General." "Exactly." Kyrix narrowed his eyes. "I have conquered 23 species. I know what defeat looks like. This is not it. This is waiting. Perhaps they are simply broken. No, broken species weep. They mourn. They show despair." He pointed at the humans below. "Look at them. They work, they eat, they sleep. But their eyes are always watching, always learning." Kyrix had tried to tell Queen Valara his concerns, but she dismissed them. She had grown comfortable with her new subjects. She even found them interesting, studying their culture and history with the curiosity of a collector examining rare items. Then came the incident that changed everything. Officer Taller was one of Kyrix's warriors, a veteran of many conquests. He was also cruel. He enjoyed having power over the weaker species, enjoyed making them fear him. The human workers tried to avoid him when possible. One day, Taller was supervising a group of humans in the cargo bay. They were moving heavy containers, preparing supplies for a long journey to another sector. A young human named Minho, barely 18 years old, dropped one of the containers. It crashed to the floor, spilling its contents across the deck. Taller's eyes blazed with anger. He crossed the bay in 3 strides and grabbed Minho by the throat, lifting him off the ground. "Clumsy animal. I'm sorry," Minho choked out. "It was an accident. Accidents have consequences." Taller drew his weapon, a blade that glowed with energy. "Perhaps your death will teach the others to be more careful." The other humans froze in terror. They wanted to help, but they knew interference would only make things worse. They had learned that lesson in the first weeks of occupation. Jiho was at the far end of the cargo bay, moving supplies with another group. He heard the commotion. He turned and saw Taller holding Minho. Saw the blade rising. Something inside Jiho cracked. The temperature in the cargo bay dropped suddenly. Humans and aliens alike saw their breath mist in the air. Frost began forming on the metal surfaces near where Jiho stood. The lights flickered. Jiho set down the container he was carrying and walked toward Talor. His footsteps echoed in the suddenly silent bay. Every eye turned to watch him. "Let him go," Jiho said. His voice was quiet, but it carried across the entire space. Talor laughed. "Or what? You'll beg? You'll cry?" He pressed the blade against Minho's throat. "Watch carefully, humans. This is what happens when you fail the Empire." Frost spread further. The air itself seemed to vibrate with tension. Jiho's eyes began to glow, just slightly. with a light that came from within. "Last chance," Jiho said. "Let him go." Talor's smile faded. For the first time, he felt something he had not felt in decades of conquest. Fear. The human standing before him seemed to grow taller, to fill more space than his body should occupy. The air around him shimmered like heat waves, but the temperature continued to drop. General Kyrix entered the cargo bay at that moment, drawn by reports of the disturbance. He saw the scene immediately and understood. This was it. This was what he had been waiting for. The moment when the humans would reveal their true nature. In her quarters, Hana suddenly felt something. A presence, familiar and vast. She knew without being told that it was Jiho. The brother she thought she knew was showing what he really was. Young Yuna, playing in the children's area 3 decks away, stopped and looked up. She remembered the flash of light she had seen months ago. Now she felt it again, stronger. She whispered to herself. He's not hiding anymore. Back in the cargo bay, Jiho took another step forward. The metal deck beneath his feet groaned. Frost covered everything within 20 feet of him now. The lights directly above him exploded, showering sparks that froze in mid-air before touching the ground. Talor's hand began to shake. He could not move. His telepathic senses, usually so clear, were screaming danger. He tried to call for help through the mental network all Nexium shared, but found only static and terror. Then a voice crackled through the communication system. Commander Daehyun's voice, broadcast from Earth itself, transmitted through channels that should have been impossible to access. Protocol silence is lifted. All sentinels, you are cleared to engage. Show them who we are. Jiho smiled. It was not a cruel smile. It was sad, tired, and ancient beyond measure. "Thank you," he said to Daehyun, though the commander could not hear him. Then he looked at Talor. "I tried to warn you. We all tried. But you wouldn't listen." Talor dropped Minho and tried to run. He made it 2 steps before his legs stopped working. He fell to the deck, paralyzed, his eyes wide with terror. Jiho caught Minho before the young man hit the ground. He checked the boy's throat, made sure he was breathing properly, then helped him stand. "You're safe now," Jiho said gently. Then he turned to face General Kyrix. The general had drawn his weapon, but made no move to fire. He simply stared at Jiho, analyzing, calculating, understanding finally what his instincts had been telling him for 6 months. "You're not human," Kyrix said. "Not the way we understood. What are you?" Jiho's eyes blazed brighter. Around him, other humans in the cargo bay began to change. Their eyes lit up with the same inner light. Yuna, 3 decks away, felt her own power awakening. Hana, in the science lab, gasped as knowledge flooded into her mind, memories from humanity's ancient past rising to the surface. All across the Nexium flagship, humans stopped pretending. They stopped hiding. They stopped being what the aliens expected them to be. Jiho looked at Kyrix and answered his question with perfect calm. "I'm what humans become when we stop pretending to be weak." The alert reached Queen Valara within seconds. A disturbance in the cargo bay. Energy readings that made no sense. Her telepathic network flooded with panic from her soldiers. She rose from her throne and moved swiftly through the corridors of her flagship. By the time she arrived at the cargo bay, 50 of her best warriors had already assembled. They stood at the entrance, weapons ready, but none of them entered. "What is happening?" she demanded. General Kyrix stood at the front of the group. His face was pale, his usual confidence shaken. "My queen, you need to see this yourself." Valara pushed past him and entered the cargo bay. What she saw made her stop. The space was transformed. Frost covered every surface. Thick layers of ice that should not exist in a temperature-controlled environment. The air shimmered and bent, as if reality itself was uncertain. In the center of it all stood one human, Jiho. He did not look threatening. He simply stood there, calm and still, with young Minho safely behind him. But around Jiho, the world had changed. Gravity seemed to flow differently, light bent at wrong angles. And his eyes, those human eyes, burned with power that hurt to look at directly. Talor lay on the deck, conscious but unable to move. His mind screamed through the telepathic network, begging for help, sharing images of what he had seen. Images that other Nexium could not fully process. "You," Valara said, pointing at Jiho. "What have you done?" "I stopped one of your soldiers from murdering a child," Jiho replied. His voice was normal, conversational, which somehow made it more disturbing. "Was I wrong to do so?" "You used power. Forbidden power." "How is this possible?" Jiho tilted his head slightly. "Forbidden by whom? Your empire?" "You don't make our laws, Your Majesty." One of Valara's warriors, braver or more foolish than the rest, raised his weapon and fired. The energy bolt shot across the cargo bay, bright and fast. Every Nexium had seen such weapons kill with a single shot. The bolt stopped 3 feet from Jiho. It simply hung in the air, frozen in time and space. Jiho glanced at it, then waved his hand. The bolt reversed direction and shot back, passing harmlessly over the heads of the Nexium soldiers and disappearing into the wall. "Please don't do that again," Jiho said. "Someone could get hurt." Valara's mind raced. She had ruled for 1,000 years. She had conquered 47 star systems. She had never encountered anything like this. She reached out with her telepathy, trying to read Jiho's mind, trying to understand what he was. The moment her consciousness touched his, she recoiled. It was like touching the surface of a star. His mind was vast, connected to something enormous that stretched beyond her ability to perceive. She saw glimpses, fragments of truth that made her ancient wisdom seem like a child's understanding. She saw Earth, not as it was now, but as it had been millions of years ago. She saw humans, but not weak humans. She saw beings of pure power, capable of reshaping reality with thought alone. She saw them at war with themselves, tearing their world apart with their abilities. And then she saw the choice. The decision made by humanity's ancestors. They chose to lock their powers away. They chose to limit themselves. They chose peace over power, civilization over chaos. They built genetic locks, psychological barriers, anything to prevent future generations from accessing these abilities, unless absolutely necessary. "No," Valara whispered, pulling her mind back from the vision. "This is not possible." "It's very possible," Jiho said. "It's also very sad. We gave up so much to become peaceful. We forgot what we were. Most humans don't even know the truth." He looked around at the other humans in the cargo bay. Their eyes were glowing now, all of them. "But you changed that. Your conquest was the key that opened our locks." Hana pushed through the crowd of humans. She had run from the science lab the moment she felt her brother's power awakening. Now she stood beside him, her own eyes bright with newfound understanding. "I found the genetic markers," she said to Jiho. "Or rather, I found that we don't have them. Every other species in the galaxy shares common ancestry. Except us, because we're not from here," Jiho said softly. "Not originally. Our ancestors came from somewhere else. Somewhere far away. They came here to hide, to forget, to be normal." More humans entered the cargo bay. They came from all over the ship, drawn by something they could not explain. Workers, scientists, children, elderly. All of them felt the awakening. All of them began to remember what their species had locked away. Yuna walked through the crowd of Nexium soldiers. They parted before her, too frightened to stop an 8-year-old girl. She approached Jiho and took his hand. "I saw your light before," she said. "When they first captured us, I knew you were special." "We're all special," Jiho replied, smiling down at her. "Every human here. We just forgot for a while." General Kyrix found his voice. "How many? How many of you can do this?" It was Hana who answered. "We don't know. The awakening is spreading across all human space. Earth, the colonies, every human ship. Some will awaken fully, like Jiho." Others will only feel a fraction of their potential. But all of us, every single human, carries this power in our genetic code. End quote. Billions, Valara said, her voice hollow. You're saying billions of humans are awakening? Yes, Jiho confirmed. Your empire conquered many species. But you made a mistake with humanity. You threatened our existence completely. That's the trigger. That's what opens the locks. When humanity faces true extinction, we stop pretending to be weak. The temperature in the cargo bay began to rise. The frost melted, but not into water. It simply disappeared, the energy returning to wherever Jiho had drawn it from. The lights stopped flickering. Gravity normalized. Jiho was putting everything back the way it was. I don't want to fight you, he said to Valara. None of us do. Fighting is what our ancestors tried to escape. But we will defend ourselves. We will protect our people. And if you force us to choose between your empire and our survival, we will choose survival. He took a step toward the queen. Her warriors tensed, ready to die protecting her. But she raised a hand to stop them. Jiho walked closer, until he stood directly before her throne. You have a choice to make, he said. You can leave human space peacefully. You can tell the galaxy that humanity is not to be conquered. You can become our ally, instead of our enemy. He paused. Or you can refuse, and discover why humans spent millions of years learning to control ourselves. Valara stared at him. She had ruled with absolute power for centuries. No one questioned her decisions. No one made demands of her. But now, standing before this one human, she felt something she had not felt in a very long time. She felt small. And if I refuse? She asked, her pride forcing her to challenge him despite her fear. Jiho's expression became sad. Then I'll show you what one human can do. Just one. And then you'll understand why there are billions of us. The cargo bay fell silent. Every being present, human and Nexium alike, waited for the Queen's response. The fate of two species, perhaps the fate of the entire galaxy, hung on her next words. General Kyrix leaned close to his queen and whispered urgently, My queen, I have fought across the stars. I have seen weapons that could destroy planets. I have faced armies of millions. He glanced at Jiho. This human, standing before us calmly, scares me more than all of those combined. We should listen to him. Valara looked around the cargo bay. At her soldiers, brave warriors who had never known defeat, now standing paralyzed with fear. At the humans, ordinary workers and families, their eyes blazing with ancient power. At Jiho, this one human who held himself back with visible effort, she thought about her empire. About the 47 species she had conquered. About the millions of lives under her rule. And she realized that for the first time in 1,000 years, she was not the most powerful being in the room. You speak of choice, she said slowly. But what choice do I truly have? If I refuse, you destroy my fleet. If I accept, I admit weakness before the entire galaxy. No, Jiho said gently. If you accept, you show wisdom. You show that you can learn. You show that you're more than a conqueror. He extended his hand toward her. You show that you can be something greater. Valara looked at his outstretched hand. Such a human gesture. Such a simple offer. But accepting it would mean everything. Before Valara could respond, the communication systems across the ship activated. Every screen, every display, every communication device showed the same image. Commander Daehyun appeared, broadcasting from Earth itself. Your Majesty, Daehyun said, his voice calm and formal. I am Commander Daehyun, of Earth Defense Command. I believe we need to talk. Valara's eyes widened. How are you accessing my ship's systems? That's impossible. Many things you thought impossible are happening today, Daehyun replied. As we speak, the genetic locks are opening across all of human space. Earth, Mars, the outer colonies, every human vessel in the galaxy. We are remembering what we are. On the screen behind Daehyun, Valara could see Earth. The planet glowed, not with reflected sunlight, but with its own light. 8 billion humans were awakening simultaneously, and the energy of that awakening was visible from space. What you see is not a weapon. Daehyun continued. It's simply humans existing without restraint. This is what we normally keep locked away. This is what we hide from ourselves and others. General Kirix moved to stand beside his queen. Tell us the truth. All of it. What are you? Daehyun nodded. That's fair. You deserve to understand what you've awakened. He took a breath. Millions of years ago, humanity's ancestors were not like we are now. They possessed abilities that made them like gods. They could manipulate matter with thought. They could travel through space without ships. They could reshape worlds. The image on the screen changed, showing ancient human civilizations that the Nexium had never seen in any historical record, cities that floated in the air, structures that defied physics, beings of pure energy taking human form. But with that power came conflict, Daehyun said. Humans fought each other constantly. Every disagreement became a war. Every war nearly destroyed everything. Our ancestors realized they had to choose, either control their power or destroy themselves completely. Hana watched the images, tears streaming down her face. She had always loved human history, but this was history no one had taught her. This was the truth her species had buried. They made the hardest choice possible, Daehyun continued. They locked their powers away. They changed their own genetics, built psychological barriers, created fail-safes to prevent future generations from accessing these abilities. They wanted their descendants to be normal, to live peaceful lives, to build civilizations based on cooperation, not power. Jiho spoke up, his voice carrying to the communication system. But they also built a key, a way to unlock the power if humanity ever faced true extinction. That key is existential threat. When humans believe their entire species might end, the locks open. Your conquest, Daehyun said to Valara, was the first time in recorded history that humanity faced complete extinction. You didn't just conquer our colonies. You conquered all of human space. You threatened every human everywhere. You turned the key. Yuna, still holding Jiho's hand, asked the question everyone was thinking. But why did we surrender? If we had this power, why didn't we use it immediately? Because opening the locks takes time, Jiho explained. The genetic changes need to spread through the population. The psychological barriers need to break down naturally. If we had fought immediately, before the awakening completed, we would have lost. So we used humanity's greatest weapon, patience, Valara said quietly, understanding finally. Exactly, Jiho confirmed. We waited 6 months. We let you think you had won. We studied your technology, learned your tactics, understood your weaknesses, and most importantly, we gave our species time to awaken. The screen changed again. Now it showed other human colonies across the galaxy. Every planet, every station, every ship showed the same thing. Humans with glowing eyes, humans who no longer hid their true nature. A young human woman appeared on one of the screens. She stood on a colony world, surrounded by Nexium guards. My name is Saman, she said. I'm a teacher on New Soul Colony. This morning I woke up remembering things I shouldn't know. Remembering how to move objects with my mind. How to heal injuries with a touch. How to speak directly to machines and ask them to obey. She demonstrated, lifting a massive piece of machinery without touching it. I'm not special. Every human here can do this now. We all can. More humans appeared on different screens, each showing their abilities. An engineer on a space station who could see and manipulate electromagnetic fields. A doctor in a colony medical center who could diagnose illnesses just by touching patients. A child on Earth who created perfect crystal structures from sand just by willing them to exist. You're seeing humans across the galaxy, Daehyun said. All awakening. All remembering. We estimate that 30% of humans will achieve full awakening. Another 50% will have partial abilities. The remaining 20% will feel the connection but choose not to use it. Choose not to? Valara asked, confused. Yes, Jiho said. That's the most important part. We have a choice. Our ancestors built the locks so we could be normal. Now that they're open, we can choose to lock them again. We can choose to be ordinary humans, even knowing what we could be. He gestured to the other humans in the cargo bay. Many of these people will choose to relock their abilities once this crisis is over. They'll go back to being engineers, teachers, parents. They don't want power. They want peace. General Kirik shook his head in disbelief. You would willingly give up this power? That makes no sense. Power is survival. Power without wisdom is destruction, Hana said. That's what our ancestors learned. That's the lesson burned into our genetic memory. We can have power, or we can have peace. It's very hard to have both. On the main screen, Daehyun continued his explanation. There are humans like Jiho scattered across our population. We call them sentinels. They never forgot what we are. They carried the burden of knowing, so the rest of us could live normal lives. There are thousands of them, hidden among ordinary people. A new figure appeared on screen beside Daehyun, an elderly woman with kind eyes. This is Elder Miran, Daehyun said. She is one of the oldest sentinels. She's been carrying this knowledge for 90 years, Miran smiled sadly. I watched my children grow up never knowing what they could be. I watched my grandchildren play normal games, study normal subjects, live normal lives. It broke my heart sometimes, but it was necessary. They were happy being ordinary. That happiness was worth protecting. Valara processed everything she had heard. Her empire, her power, her 1,000 years of conquest. All of it suddenly seemed small. She had thought she was the apex predator in the galaxy. Now she realized she had been a small fish in a much deeper ocean. What do you want from us? She asked Jiho. Truly, what is your demand? Leave human space, Jiho said simply. Take your ships, take your soldiers, and go. Tell the galaxy that humanity is not to be conquered. In return, we'll offer you something valuable. What could you possibly offer me? Jiho smiled. Friendship, alliance, technology sharing, access to human knowledge and abilities, used peacefully. We don't want to be your enemies, Your Majesty. We just want to be left alone to live our lives as we choose. He looked around at the assembled humans and Nexium. Your empire has conquered 47 species, but conquest isn't the only way to build something great. You could be the first empire to grow through cooperation instead of force. You could show the galaxy that there's another path. And if I refuse? Valara asked, though she already knew the answer. Jiho's expression became serious. Then you'll discover what happens when billions of humans stop restraining themselves. You'll see what we're capable of when we choose power over peace. And, Your Majesty, I promise you don't want to see that. We don't want to show you that. The cargo bay was silent, except for the hum of the ship's systems. Everyone waited for the Queen's decision. The moment stretched, feeling like an eternity. Finally, General Kirik spoke. My Queen, I have served you for 300 years. I have never counseled retreat, but I counsel it now. These humans, they are showing us mercy. They are giving us a choice when they could simply destroy us. We should accept their offer with gratitude. Valara looked at her most trusted general. Then she looked at Jiho, at the other awakened humans, at the screens showing Earth glowing with power. She thought about her empire, about all the species serving her, about the galaxy. She thought she understood, and she made her decision. Valara stood from her throne. Every Nexium in the cargo bay tensed, unsure what their queen would do. Every human watched carefully, hoping for peace but prepared for war. I need to understand, Valara said. Truly understand what you are, not through words, but through direct knowledge. Jiho hesitated. That could be dangerous for you. The human mind is different from yours. What I show you might be overwhelming. I am 1,000 years old, Valara replied. I have survived wars, plagues, and rebellions. I can survive the truth. Very well, Jiho said quietly. But remember, you asked for this. He stepped closer to the queen. The space between them seemed to shrink, as if distance itself bent to bring them together. Jiho raised his hand, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel the warmth of his palm. Open your mind to mine, he said. Valara did. Her telepathic abilities, refined over centuries, reached out to connect with Jiho's consciousness. What she found made her entire body lock up in shock. She saw everything, all of it, at once. She saw humanity's beginning, not on Earth but on another world, a planet whose name was lost to time. She saw the first humans discovering their powers, learning to reshape reality with thought. She saw the joy of creation, the wonder of possibilities. Then she saw the wars. Humans fighting humans. Not with weapons, but with power itself. Continents destroyed by single individuals. Oceans boiled away. The very fabric of space torn apart by conflicts between beings who had become too powerful to coexist. She saw the survivors, a tiny fraction of the original population, fleeing their dying world. She saw them arrive at Earth, a primitive planet teeming with basic life. She saw them make their choice. Never again, they had sworn. We will bury what we are. We will become small, weak, ordinary. We will forget our power, so our children can know peace. Valara watched as they rewrote their own genetics, built barriers in their minds, created safeguards upon safeguards. She felt their pain at giving up what made them special. She felt their hope that future generations would be happy without power. And then she saw the present. She saw Earth. 8 billion humans awakening. But it wasn't what she expected. The humans weren't celebrating their power. Many were crying. Many were afraid of what they had become. They remembered the old wars, the destruction, the horror of unlimited power, without wisdom. She saw Jiho's memories, a child born knowing what he was. Growing up watching other children play happily, never knowing the weight he carried. Joining the military to serve and protect, always hiding his true abilities. Meeting other sentinels. Sharing the burden of knowledge, she felt his loneliness. The isolation of knowing you could reshape the world but choosing not to. The pain of watching humanity remain vulnerable when he could make them safe with a thought. The discipline required to stay small when you could be vast. And finally, she saw what would happen if she refused to leave. She saw Jiho release his full power. Not to attack, but simply to exist without restraint. She saw reality itself struggle to contain him. She saw her fleet, her empire, her 1,000 years of conquest. All of it swept away like dust in a storm. But worse than that, she saw what it would do to him. She saw the pain in his eyes as he destroyed. She saw him mourning every Nexium life lost, carrying the weight of necessary violence. She saw humanity's last hope for peace dying with the first use of their power for destruction. Valara stood frozen. Her body refused to move. Her mind could not process what she had seen. It was too much, too vast, too terrible and beautiful, and sad all at once. Tears streamed down her silver face, the first tears she had cried in centuries. The cargo bay remained silent. Minutes passed. The queen of the Nexium Empire, ruler of 47 star systems, conqueror of countless species, stood paralyzed by understanding. Jiho gently broke the connection. Valara gasped, her body returning to her control. She stumbled, and General Kyrix caught her, his own face showing shock at seeing his queen so affected. Now you know, Jiho said softly. Now you understand why we surrendered, why we waited, why we're begging you to leave peacefully. His eyes held infinite sadness. We don't want to be gods. We want to be people. We want to live quiet lives, raise families, explore the universe with wonder, instead of power. But if you force us to choose between extinction and ascension, we will choose survival, and everyone will lose. Valara found her voice, though it shook. I saw everything. Your ancestors' world, destroyed by their own power. Your people, choosing to become weak, your loneliness. Carrying this burden. She looked around at all the humans present. You are the most powerful species in the galaxy. And the saddest. Yes, Hannah agreed. We are. We gave up everything to be normal. And now that we're not normal anymore, all we want is to go back. Yuna stepped forward, this 8-year-old girl with glowing eyes. I don't want to be special, she said simply. I want to play with my friends. I want to go to school. I want to be a normal kid. She looked up at Valara. Please, let us be normal again. The queen looked at this child, at her earnest face, at the power burning behind her innocent eyes. A child who could probably destroy a planet, begging for the chance to just be a child. I understand now, Valara said, and I am ashamed. She turned to General Kyrix. Issue the order. All Nexium forces are to withdraw from human space immediately. No delays, no exceptions. Kyrix bowed. Yes. My queen. He activated his communication device and began issuing orders. Valara looked at Jiho. I cannot apologize enough for what we have done. We didn't conquer you. We awakened you. We took away your peace and your normalcy. That is a crime greater than any war. You didn't know, Jiho said. How could you? We hid it so well that we hid it from ourselves. What will you do now? Valara asked. You've shown your power to the galaxy. Other species will come, some will seek alliance, others will see you as a threat. Commander Dehun's voice came through the speakers again. We've already begun discussions with Earth Council. The decision has been made. Within 1 year, 90% of awakened humans will voluntarily relock their abilities. We'll keep a small number of sentinels active, just enough to protect humanity if needed. But the rest of us will return to being ordinary. You would give up this power so easily? General Kyrix asked, in disbelief. Yes, many humans said at once. The word echoed through the cargo bay, spoken by dozens of voices in perfect unison. Minho, the young man who had almost died, spoke up. I felt the power when it awakened. I could do amazing things. But I also felt the weight of it. The responsibility. The danger. I don't want it. I want to be a farmer on Taeyang 4, like I planned. I want a simple life. One by one, humans in the cargo bay began to dim their lights. The glow in their eyes faded. They were choosing, actively and consciously, to lock their powers away again. Not all of them, some like Jiho remained fully awakened, but most chose to return to normalcy. Valara watched this with amazement. In all my 1,000 years, I have never seen a species choose weakness when given the option for strength. We're not choosing weakness, Hana explained. We're choosing peace. There's a difference. Her own eyes dimmed as she made her choice. I'll remember what I saw. I'll carry the knowledge, but I don't need the power. I'm a scientist. I can explore the universe with curiosity instead of abilities. Over the next hour, the Nexium forces began their withdrawal. Ships undocked from the flagship. The occupation ended not with battles, but with handshakes. Nexium soldiers who had guarded humans apologized. Humans who had served them offered forgiveness. Officer Talor, recovered from his paralysis, approached Jiho with his head bowed. I nearly killed one of your children. You could have destroyed me. Why didn't you? Because violence creates more violence, Jiho replied. Our ancestors learned that lesson. I won't repeat their mistakes. Talor knelt before him. I am in your debt. The Nexium are in your debt. We will not forget this mercy. As the last Nexium prepared to leave, Queen Valara stood before Jiho one final time. What you've given me today is more valuable than any conquest. You've shown me a different path, The Nexium Empire will change. No more conquests. No more forced submissions. We will grow through cooperation, as you suggested. We'll be watching, Jiho said with a small smile. Humanity has learned to be very patient. We'll give you time to change, to prove your words true. And if you succeed, we'll be your strongest allies. Valara extended her hand. Copying the human gesture, Jiho took it. The conqueror and the conquered. Shaking hands as equals. One question, Valara said before leaving. Why did you remain awakened? Why not lock your power away like the others? Jiho looked around the cargo bay, at the humans returning to their normal lives, at the peaceful transition happening across human space. Because someone needs to remember. Someone needs to stand guard. The sentinels will remain awakened, watching, protecting, so everyone else can forget and be happy. That's a heavy burden, Valara said softly. Yes, Jiho agreed. But it's one we choose to carry, so they don't have to. The Nexium departed. Within 3 days, all their forces had left human space. The galaxy watched in shock as the mighty empire retreated from what should have been an easy conquest. Stories spread across the stars, the species that chose peace over power. The humans who could be gods but preferred to be gardeners, teachers, engineers, parents. Some species feared them, others sought alliance. But all respected them. Jiho returned to his quarters on the Times New Dawn asterisk. The colony ship was preparing to finally land on Taeyang 4, to begin the mission they had set out on a year ago. He sat on his bed, alone, and felt the weight lift slightly from his shoulders. A knock on his door. Hana entered, followed by Yuna. They sat beside him in comfortable silence. Does it hurt? Yuna asked, staying awakened when everyone else locks their power away? Sometimes, Jiho admitted. But seeing you all happy, living normal lives, that makes it worthwhile. Hana hugged her brother. Thank you for carrying this, so we don't have to. That's what family does, Jiho said simply. On Earth, Commander Daehyun stood at his window, watching the planet return to normal. The glow faded. 8 billion humans chose ordinariness over divinity. And in that choice, they proved they were worthy of both. 50 light-years away, Queen Valara addressed her empire. We will change, she declared. We will learn from the humans. Power is not strength. Wisdom is strength. And the wisdom to choose peace when you could choose war. That is the greatest strength of all. The galaxy was changing. Not through conquest, but through the example of one species that chose to be small when they could have been vast. That chose to be kind when they could have been cruel. That chose to be human when they could have been gods. And in a small apartment on Earth, Elder Moran smiled as she felt the locks close across humanity once more. The crisis had passed. Humanity had survived. And most importantly, they had survived without losing themselves. She whispered to the empty room, knowing somehow that other sentinels across the galaxy could hear her. We did it. We kept them safe. We can rest now. At least for a while. And across human space, the sentinels echoed her words. Not in victory, but in relief. Humanity had faced its greatest test and passed. They had shown the galaxy what they were, and then chosen to hide it again. Because that was the human way. To have power but prefer peace. To be capable of everything but choose simplicity. To stand at the peak of possibility and decide that the valley below was where they truly wanted to live. The human way. The choice that defined them. The decision that made them unique in all the galaxy. Not the power they possessed, but the power they chose not to use. And somewhere in the vast universe, humanity's ancient ancestors, long dead on their destroyed world, finally rested easy. Their children had learned the lesson. Their sacrifice had not been in vain. Humanity would endure. Not as gods, but as people. And that was enough.